welcome everyone to today's collaborative conversation on the topic of interactive children's worship bulletins and enrichment bags. My name is Kirsten Traxel. I am the project manager for the Font and Faith Initiative at the Center for Excellence in Christian Education. And we are just delighted that you've joined us today for this presentation. This Zoom will be recorded, is being recorded, and it will be shared to our websites. And you are more than welcome to leave on your video, your camera, or turn it off, whatever you are comfortable with. During the panel discussion, we ask that you do remain muted until we begin the question and answer session in the last 15 minutes or so of the discussion. We will be monitoring the chat though, so if you have something come to mind that you don't want to lose before the end, before we get to the question and answer session, please go ahead and put that in the chat, and we will make sure that we get to those at the end. So I would like to introduce today's collaborative conversation panel. Erica Stiner, will you give us a wave, Erica? Is the Director of Children's Spirituality at University Presbyterian Church in San Antonio, Texas. Erica loves to teach and learn through storytelling, imagining, and wondering. And she and her husband have 3 children. And Faith Kemmler, Faith, give us a little wave. Faith is the Director of Christian Formation at Westminster Presbyterian Church in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Faith holds a Master of Arts in Christian Education from Union Presbyterian Seminary and is currently pursuing her Master of Divinity as well. Faith is also the Center for Excellence's social media guru. So all these wonderful posts and great information that you receive through social media and online is due to Faith. So thank you, Faith, so much for that. And Heather Woolard-Lawson is the Associate Pastor for Children and Their Families at Shandon Presbyterian Church in Columbia, South Carolina. She is also a graduate of Union Presbyterian Seminary. Heather is an innovative resourcer and always has lots of great ideas for us, so we're excited for her to be with us today as well. So thank you, Erica, Faith, and Heather for guiding us through this discussion today. We are so grateful for your time and your expertise. And I'd like to start our discussion by asking each of our panelists to briefly share why. Why do you use children's bulletins? Why do you use enrichment bags at your churches if you do? And tell us a little bit about how you feel these tools support your ministry. So, Erica, do you want to start us off, please?
Sure, I would love to. So we use worship bags that have orders of worship in them. So we're not coming up with a worship bulletin every single week. Our goal is that we want to equip parents to teach their children about worship. We have our children remain in worship for the entire service. And so we have tools to enhance their experience. Some of them are as simple as like little fidgets and whatnot, just to keep hands busy so ears can listen. But we really want parents and children to worship together. And so all of our tools go towards that goal.
Thank you. Heather, you go next.
Yes, absolutely. Worship is one of the most important things we do as a church. It brings all of us together. And worship is incomplete if we don't have voices ranging in all ages. So the most holy, authentic worship includes everyone. And worship bags, worship bulletins are a way that we can include children in a way that honors where they are. And the best that we can do is to meet them there and have a beautiful sense of what they bring. The worship bags and bulletins for us are tools that help parents engage their children in worship. They're like tools in a toolkit. Sometimes you need a hammer, sometimes you need a screwdriver. There's a tool in there for every family to help engage in worship.
Thank you, Heather and Faith.
Thank you. So I like Heather's descriptor of tools. There are just different ways that we all engage in worship, because there are also different ways that we engage in learning in school and in our jobs and in our life everywhere else. And so it's important to me to help equip our worshipers of all ages to equip and empower them to find ways that help them have a deeper worship experience, and to know that they don't just have to come and sit in a pew and that's all that there is to worship, but that it can be this multisensory experience, and that it can be something that is more personalized to them, and not every single one of us sitting in the pews is doing the exact same thing the exact same way, because we're not all experiencing God and Spirit in the exact same way too.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share our presentation now to all of you. Are we good with that? We can see it. Wonderful. All right. Well, I'm going to start again, Faith. I'm going to have you continue. Will you introduce us to the concept of what an interactive worship bulletin is? What is that interactive aspect that we're talking about today?
Yeah, absolutely. So the standard worship bulletin that we are most familiar with is that you pick it up and it has the order of worship in it. And the way that you might interact with it is by reading through as you're reading the prayers or reading what the hymn is or whatnot. Interactive worship bulletins can take a couple of different forms. And I think those forms fit different contexts and achieve different goals. The most common interactive worship bulletin we see, especially that's geared towards children, and what is put out like by most publishers who are going to sell you a bulletin, is a bulletin that's going to have it might have a word search in it, or a maze, or color in this picture, or unscramble these letters. And it's interactive in that way. And the way that it maybe ties into that worship service or that Sunday is it's all centered around the same scripture that is being preached from. And that, I think, is the one that we're most familiar with and encounter most often. The interactive worship bulletins that I use allow or help empower the worshiper to engage in each part of the service. And they also teach as they're going through the worship service. And so in these bulletins, we have the order of worship. And then in the italics, it tells you a little bit about what that part of the worship service is about, what you're doing, what the goal is, what's happening. And then there's a prompt for a lot of those. And the prompt is also to help you think and interact with it in that way. So as we look through, and this might be small, so I'll read some of them. The prelude, music to listen to as we get ready to worship and prepare to interact with the Spirit. Announcements and greetings. I throw this disclaimer out. Our order of worship is a little different in my congregation, and I know that. So this is adapted for my context, and you might change yours to adapt for your context. The prompt that this gives is, how many people can you say peace be with you today? Because when we are greeting each other, we're sharing the peace of Christ. And it's not just a hello, but a peace be with you. And one of the ways that I make this really easy on my end and is that these are undated and they leave blanks. So you can see opening hymn number blank. And you're interacting with the bulletin by filling in the hymn number, and you're also interacting with the standard worship bulletin. You have to have them side by side to fill out the other. So you need to have the normal bulletin to know what hymn you're looking up and write it and fill it in. And then it encourages you there. Like, if you don't want to sing, you can dance or hum or pretend you're playing an instrument. We all do interact with music in different ways, and maybe write down some lyrics that are standing out to you, or draw a picture of something you heard in the song. All of my prompts you'll also see are write or draw, because not everyone likes to write. Some are called more to draw, and that also helps depending on literacy levels, if you're working with pre-readers or reading children. The other piece about this bulletin is, I will say, it is not designed specifically with children in mind, but my whole congregation uses these, and they're intergenerational in that way. And I've that wasn't intentional, but as the parents started doing them with their kids, they said, "Oh, I'm learning. Oh, I really like this." And they pick them up because it encourages them to think and interact with the worship in a different way or in a more deep way. And so during the sermon, you can write some words or phrases that stand out to you, or during the scripture. In the offering, you can draw a picture about a gift you have to offer. And that's especially meaningful for children who might not necessarily have money to put in the plate and offer in the same way. Um, and so it walks them through the service while teaching them why we're doing what we're doing. And then as they do it a few times and learn and know, they're still interacting with the worship service and they know what to expect in each part. But they can find different ways and they know that I'm not just sitting here and listening. But each part of this worship service, there's something to do and some way to interact. And so that is the goal of this that I've created here, an interactive in a different way of tying really deeply in with the worship service that is happening in front of you as well.
And I think we have this slide as well, Faith. Do you want to talk to this?
Yes. So this is a resource that you can get from us here at the center. You can find it on our website. Maybe I'll post it to socials later if you're looking for an easy, quick link. But this is actually really great. It's only $5. And it is editable. And so these are stickers. It's an Avery template. So you just buy the Avery stickers and you can customize them and print them. And then they can stick them in their bulletin as they follow along in the order of worship. And this actually can be really great for pre-readers too, because they have symbols on them. And so you can have the symbols in the bulletin match. Maybe they're black and white or washed out, and then you match the sticker up with it. And what I love about how customizable it is we were doing a senior pastor search and we had a candidate Sunday. And so I changed it so that we learned each part of worship as we were hearing the candidate sermon and hearing from the PNC and knowing what was happening there as well. And so those both can work with the interactive bulletin I've made, or they can work with just your normal bulletin that you are following along as you go and learning the rhythms of worship from the stickers. And I do genuinely actually use these for real. It is a little bit of a shameless plug. I know I'm on the center staff, but as soon as Kirsten told me about them, I bought them and I printed them, and we have them that go out every week with our worship supplies as well.
Yes, we love these. We actually, and a little plug for the future, we have some bigger versions coming out in different forms. So stay tuned. We'll have some more things to share with our worship elements. Wonderful. Thank you, Faith, so much. Okay, we are on to Heather's worship bulletins. Heather, what can you tell us?
Yeah, I think mine are a little bit of a combo of what Faith talked about at first with the word games and things like that in the bulletin, and then the interactive piece of like trying to guide them through worship. My bulletins there are pieces that stay the same every week, and there's pieces that change seasonally or every week. So the pieces that stay the same sort of help streamline that process for me as I make them. This is just a Canva template that I've made. So I go into the same Canva doc and I just duplicate the page and keep going. I have like 400-page Canva doc right now. I should probably split that off at some point. But the first bit is the welcome to church. When I do my children's sermons, I always start by asking them how they're feeling on their thumb thermometers, so they can give me a gauge of how they're doing. And this is sort of similar, coloring in the face of how they're feeling. I think kids like to be noticed, and they like to tell you what's going on in their life. And they like to say, "I am grumpy today," and I might not want to be here, but I'm here, so I'm going to color in the sad face and the sleepy face because I'd rather be sleeping. And that's great. I want to hear it if it's happy or sad. And then we move on to gathering around the word. So we do three act worship. So gathering, proclaiming, and sending. So we have in gathering, I always do something with the scripture lesson. It could be unscrambling. This one that you see here is crossing out every fourth letter. I found that they really like decoding, like a cipher thing. Um, Harder for me to make, but honestly, they like it better. So I do a lot of ciphers, decoding the messages. And then proclaiming the word, I always have the piece where it has the scripture and then tracing it in the different colors. This for me was really important. I noticed when I was doing worship readiness with our first graders, this was a big gap in their knowledge. They, I mean, it was one of my favorite moments was them being like, that's the time. Like that's the time of day, not by like that's what it looks like to them. Numbers separated by colon is the time of day. So I added this after that. And there's a lot more familiarity because they just see it over and over again and know that, okay, that has something to do with the Bible or something that we're reading. Um, and then after that, it's all around the sermon. That second page is all surrounding the sermon. And those change out the most. So sometimes it's sermon bingo. Sometimes it's a doodling page. It's just blank right there. Sometimes it's color in this word when you hear it. And then other times it's interacting with their bulletin. So I'll have something that says, take out your big bulletin and find every time this word occurs and to put a tally, which word won. So I'll have like three different words and it'll be Jesus, uh, prayer, and hymn. Or sometimes I do children. Sometimes I do find anyone's name. And so they just count those up and it makes them have to refer back to their big bulletin and get familiar with the way that it looks. And then responding to the word all the way on the right of your screen. That top part stays the same every time. We sing 3 hymns every week, and they get stickers in their worship bags. And so every week, if they stood up to sing the first hymn, they get to put a sticker in it. Um, the stickers sometimes end up on their parents' faces, and that's okay too. But that's what they're intended for. And then the last part is always a deeper thinking question for them to either draw or respond to in writing. So there is something in there for each age level, and I try and make sure that I'm including something that non-readers can do, like the stickers and the first page all the way to your left. That cover page always stays blank. Um, in our bulletins, we always have a different piece of artwork on the cover image. So some kids like to replicate that on this bulletin, and some kids like to draw whatever is on their heart and mind on that cover page. Um, and so those are things, the cover page, the first bit where it's the faces, and the stickers are all about non-readers. And then the other pieces are for those kids who are gradually starting to develop those literacy skills. There's another example. I put in so many examples. So
And I have them all. So if you
excellent. Okay, so all right. So that one, as you can see, that's a doodling one on the response, some unscrambling. Okay, let's go to the next and see if I can figure out. Okay. Yep. Another uh they're having to use the letters to find out what the Bible story is about. Okay. Let's see. Okay, I think this is one where it was a series, yes. So my senior pastor does a lot of series preaching. It is a gift as a listener, and it is a curse as someone who puts together resources because all the resources are lectionary based. And so a lot of times I try and follow her series in these worship bulletins because that's what we're talking about in worship. So as you can see on the far right, the series was Words Matter. And so that stayed at the top of the response each week. And then under the Bible reading, those stayed the same every week as well, with the word changing out for each series. Do you have the next one in the series? Yeah. So as you can see, those sort of two on the right stayed the same, and I changed out the word and I changed out the gathering around the word to be applicable to that scripture. Okay. Let's see, what else do we have? Sermon bingo. It's a favorite. Do sermon bingo. Everybody loves sermon bingo. Okay. What else do we have here? This is our Lenten series one. So this stayed pretty much the same for responding to the word. I really appreciate something that can be adaptable for the 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or whatever of your either liturgical calendar or your series that you're preaching. So um, it made it easy for me because I wanted to explain to them about the liturgical time. So I kept that calendar in there each week, and then I just changed out the questions. But they got really familiar with that. Okay. Advent. I love these Advent candles. I've done them every Advent I've been here. They're just the best. But it makes it easy for you when you're making the bulletin every 4 weeks, especially in Advent when you're also planning the Christmas pageant and all the beautiful things around that. You can copy paste. Just write in hope, peace, joy, love, and move on. All right.
And we're there?
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, we will come back. We're going to have some questions at the end
Yeah.
that circle back to where you find your resources and how to make it simpler for those that are overwhelmed. But for now, let's go ahead and move into our worship enrichment bags. I'm going to ask Erica to tell us what is a worship enrichment bag, and then I have your slides as well. So just let me know when you're ready to move through those.
All right. So we have a bag in each pew, or we also have some seating where like a lot of families sit, where we've got like 3 bags in that general area that have tools um, that help people worship, go through worship. They are intergenerational. I often am encouraging adults. We don't actually print bulletins in our church. Everything is on the screen, everything is digital. And so I have, and I guess I don't know honestly, what picture is first in my slides, but I did bring some show and tells. Okay, yeah. So these are our bags. I go through them every single month. We change out with we do communion once a month, and so I have a communion worship order of worship and a normal order of worship, and so I go through and change them. We have things when we are doing sermon series or when it's a season that are specific to that particular season that I change and go through. But I love going through and finding the treasures. I dump them all out. It's a whole ordeal. But it's really a great way to keep them fresh, and the stuff is changing even with the things that are the same each week as well. What is my next slide? Oh, yeah, so these are the orders of worship that I created. Ours have a picture very similar to what Faith had, where it kind of shows what is happening. And then we were really working with our kiddos. We have a lot of neurodivergent kids in our community. And so I wanted to also say, like, what should your body be doing? What are you doing during this particular moment? And so, we're sitting, we're standing. Sometimes we want you to respond and to say things out loud. Sometimes we just want you to sit here and listen. And so we do a lot of teaching with that with our kids, but this was also helpful for parents as they're going through. My kids, I have 2 that are in worship with me all the time, and 1 that is there depending on her mood, who's about to turn 3, and they're often pulling these out and saying, okay, where are we? How much longer do we have? But it is helpful just to stay on track. Every now and then, of course, we've got weird things that happen and it's not in the order of worship, but I like having something each week that they can go through. I also created this little worship flip book. I don't know if that's the next slide. And that goes through each part of worship and kind of explains what it is. Originally, this was created as a gift to our first graders, or when they are in worship with us full time. And so it was a gift to those families as they're teaching their kids and going through worship. But it was a big hit. And so it ended up in every single worship bag. And it really goes through, it says, here's the thing that we're doing. This is why we are doing it. There are often prompts, can you help find the scripture? Similar to what our other friends have shown, things that help people engage with. So knowing why we do what we do, knowing when we're standing, when we're sitting, all of those kind of things, because that's not in the flip book. And then something for them to do to engage with. Our pastor has started saying the page numbers for the Pew Bibles, so that it's a little bit easier for our friends to find the pages that our scripture is on. And it's really started a lot of conversations. The Pew Bible is not necessarily always the translation that is read aloud, or it's not the same translation that the kids get when they get Bibles in third grade. And so it's kind of nice to have those different translations and to be able to look and see. Let's see. Oh, yes. And so then I also have other in engagement things that we go through. I have a little note to parents that was kind of back on the first page, and I'm happy to share that just says, like, here's what's in this toolkit. This is how we hope that you use it. We do a lot of things that are, if they're repeated week after week, we try to get those into the worship bag. So we have these prayer cards that we had for Lent. We did different movements with the prayers every single week. So I wanted to teach the kids, and our adults are really good at when we're doing something like that, to follow along, to do the movements with the prayer. So for them to learn, we did a season in which we taught different ways to pray with our families outside of worship. And so we did some Visio Divina cards that were in the worship bags for families if they wanted to take them home. We also encourage people to be like, this is stuff that you can have at your house. If you don't want to encourage your kid to look at these pictures and talk about these pictures or think about them during worship, take it home and do things there. And so I've also really enjoyed the Illustrated Ministries storytelling with shapes, and so I included the QR code to that. We just got really cheap wooden tanagram puzzles, and the kids have enjoyed those. And sometimes they're creating all kinds of things, but they're also really not loud when they fall, which is really nice. So yeah, it just depends on what we're doing, what our season is. We've really tried hard to have the worship bags be intergenerational. So we don't print out our bulletins. So if you don't want to follow the QR code and follow along on your phone, then, adults, you can grab the order of worship. The order of worship is the same words for for anybody. We did we've started doing the fifth Sunday, or when there is a fifth Sunday of the month, that we do something kind of weird. People, I think, are a lot more willing to join in on the weird intergenerational thing if it's okay, this is going to happen 4 times a year. But we can introduce new things. And so I would say, if you want the cheapest, best thing to put into your worship toolkits is pipe cleaners. We went through, we told the creation story from Godly Play. We had art, and then we also had the story cards in our worship bags. And every person in the congregation had these pipe cleaners and note cards, because some people like to write and draw and that kind of stuff, but to create some kind of response. And so that was a really cool moment to look out and see all the grown-ups are also participating. This isn't just something for children. Different people engage with worship in different ways, and we try to have something that has a tool for everybody. So.
Thank you, Erica. That was fantastic. Okay. And Heather, these are your worship bags, yes?
Yes, they are. And I have one sitting in my lap. So if you see, I'm going to probably be pulling that stuff out, but everything you need to see is on the screen. So hopefully you can see it well. So one of the things about my children's bulletin that they get is that it really needs the other pieces to sort of help guide you through worship. So on the clipboard, you always have a laminated letter. And it is on one side how to use the worship bags for kids, and on the other side, a parent letter for how to use the worship bags. They are called worship guides. the parents or whoever is with the kids. And it says, as a worship guide, this is, yes, here we go. Perfect. Thank you. So this is what is laminated and stays on the bags, and it helps sort of give a guidance to who all the people who are going to be using the worship bags and helping use the worship bags. So also on the clipboard is the bulletin for the week. And so the kids know the first thing that they do is take it out and start numbering the bulletin. This is a skill that we work on in worship readiness. So during our worship readiness class, I actually have worship bags in the classroom with us to help us talk about worship and what we're doing with the bags as we're worshiping and why did Miss Heather put this in there? And so we go through that in worship readiness in first grade. But that is one of the first things that we do is learn how to number our bulletin. So they can have a little countdown to how many numbers do we have left? What number are we on? And my very favorite one, the sermon is usually number like 13 or 14. My absolute favorite comment is, why does number 14 take forever? We're on 14 forever. That's just how it is. But so that is, this letter is super instrumental into helping new members or visitors sort of understand what this is if they've never seen something like it before. The parent letter goes in depth there. And then the bags are the next thing. And I love the cards that Erica showed because I might have to steal those. But inside of the bag, there's another bag. And I think on the first picture, it has two separate bags. I used to have a bag of crayons and a bag of the other goodies. And I was putting them in Ziploc bags. Friends, do not do that. Just get these bags. The Ziploc bags break. So in this bag is worship action cards, which I don't know if you have a screen of that, Kirsten, do you? Excellent. So if you are familiar with this book, Children in the Worshiping Community by David Ng and Virginia Thomas, it might look familiar. There are a little sketch of 4 of them in here. I love this book. Read it if you don't have it. And I really wanted to incorporate those in our bags, but they only had 4 and I couldn't figure out how to scan them. And we have more acts of worship than just 4. So my sweet dear husband drew all of these for us. And so I printed them. And so we have these in all of our worship bags. So it's on a little ring and they're laminated. And so the kids flip through them and they try and match what the bodies in these pictures are doing to what their body should be doing. And they sort of find where they are in the service with these. I now have so much inspiration from Erica to put more words on the back of them and like put the actual titles. I love that. So we might have a 2.0 of these very soon. And then the other thing that we have is the bookmarks. These are an absolute fave. A lot of families do these in the prelude when worship is starting or as they go during a quiet moment in worship. But these just give the kids a job so that they know worship has to include them because they have to put the bookmark in for their family to be able to participate in worship. And they might not be able to sing all of the words of the hymn, but they can be involved in the music because they placed the bookmark and they can use the bookmark as a guide to go down the stanzas. That's a skill we do in worship readiness as well. In worship readiness, we do use the bookmark sometimes, but I will say we also use witch fingers because we always teach it around Halloween. And so they get little witch fingers to guide through the stanzas to point them out easier. So that's a good piece. And then the other things you'll find in the bag are the crayons that you have to do the worship bulletin. So you have your crayons that you can trace the numbers, the verses and the chapters in the bulletin and to make your cover art very pretty. And then there's always 2 fidget toys in the bag. I try to do 2 different kinds. One is always a sensory toy for children who need some sensory input. These are called worry stones. If you just look up worry stones on Amazon, they come in all sorts of textures. You can sort of see this one's bumpy, but they are like the perfect squeezing. Like they squeeze really good. You can rub your finger on them. They're just for kids who need that input. These are just perfect. Um, and then I also have this lacing card. This is an incredible tactile, and it builds a lot of good motor skills to just lace these. Um, these are really cute tigers, and they have fun facts about tigers on the back, not related to worship, but educational and very good for their gross and fine motor skills. So we love these guys. We also have Bendy, the long fidget toy pipes. We have the ones that click into place. You can click a bunch of different ones together. Um, but those are for them to have something to do with their hands. I think Erica said earlier, or maybe it was Faith, something to do with their hands so their ears can listen. It really does create a loop of another connection point in their bodies to what they're doing. It's really great. And those get switched out. The fidget toys get switched out every 6 months-ish. And then the other stuff gets switched out based on wear and tear. Um, and then I think there was a picture of all of the worship bags hanging up. Kirsten, I can talk about that for a second. Okay, so the worship bags, when this is just like a logistical note, we have two entrances to our sanctuary. So they are hung up on coat racks, like the one in this picture at the front of the sanctuary. There's two coat racks with them hanging up, and then some of them are on the floor. I had them all hanging up like this on the coat racks. And then our sweet ushers were like, no, but they love to pick them up themselves and it's too high. So the ushers unrack them. They take them off the hangers and put them on the floor when they get there in the front. And then in the back, they're hanging up here and then on this bench to where they can grab them. And then once the bench runs out, the ushers take them off the hanging and refill the bench. And then when they are not being used on a Sunday morning, they get put into a wagon and wheeled to my office. I think you should have to have a driver's license to be able to drive that wagon. It's very hard. It's very heavy. There's 48 worship bags in the wagon, and it's just hard to steer. So that's a note for y'all if you're transporting them. And then they're super heavy because they all have a Bible in it. And that was the other thing that I was going to note. We have children's Bibles in every worship bag. Yes. So the beginner's Bible is one of them. We have about 5 or 6 different kinds of Bibles, different versions for different reading levels. So we have a preschool one. We have the illustrated Bible. We have this Bible for children. And they all the kids know which Bible they want. And they usually are picking a bag based on the Bible because everything else is pretty much the same. And so we have parents who, for our preschoolers, make sure they get the right ones. But then the elementary schoolers are like, no, I want the blue one. And then others are like, the green one's better. I want the green one. So, but that's a note as well. So they are always able to flip through a Bible and look at the pictures or read the stories during worship as well.
I noticed your see-through bags, your clear bags, and that explains they can
Yes.
see which Bible they're getting.
Yes.
Mhm.
When I first started, we had the canvas liturgical color bags, which are sweet and I love, but they love to know what's inside the bag. And so we switched to these. So yes, very good note, Kirsten. Thank you. Um,
Thank
yeah,
you, Heather.
absolutely.
Fantastic.
Thank
And
you.
as we were putting all this together, Faith and I realized that we needed to talk about one more thing. So, Faith, I'm going to
Yeah.
let you talk about what you do instead of and these worship bags. And we have a couple of slides here. This is actually if Jenna Campbell's on this Zoom as well. These are her church's liturgical libraries, and then here's Faith. So, which one do you want me to start with, Faith?
Either is fine. So, yes, Jenna has a wonderful wakelet and video from APSI this year that tells you all about this, and all of her resources is how I put mine together. And I asked Kirsten to include pictures of both to show you different ways that it can look, but they pretty much have the same stuff in them too. And so the idea of a liturgical library is it in some ways it's kind of like the worship bag, but you get to pick and choose. Um, but it also, both Jenna's and mine, we call them intergenerational liturgical libraries to reinforce that everyone can worship in different ways, and everyone, just because you're no longer a child doesn't mean that you don't need that you don't have different needs, and that you don't need different tools to help you engage in worship more deeply. And so Jenna's beautiful one was put together by one of her volunteers and youth, I think, right? Um, and grab your bag and you can come and choose from the different pieces of your library. And if you go to mine, Kirsten, on the next one, um, what makes it what turns it into like not just a shelf full of fidgets and different things, in my opinion, is a little bit with the labeling too. And so you can see on the labels like that they've all got some sort of tie in, like a cord of three is not broken easily broken, are our lacing cards, and Jesus shows us the way with the labyrinth and the breathing boards and the mazes. And so they might be fidgets that they're used to seeing in other places, but have that extra like faith language tie-in. Um, this one is of mine in our sanctuary. We have two different worship spaces, and so it also has Bibles. There are Pew Bibles, so I don't have the Pew Bibles on here, but there are some story Bibles and also the Bibles that we give out to our third graders and our seventh graders. So again, it's for everyone, no matter their age, they can grab and choose. Um, and different coloring sheets and ways. The worship bulletins you can see in the picture back there. And a lot of this is static and stays the same, but there are pieces that can and do change seasonally. So we change out the coloring pages depending on the season or the scripture being preached. And I don't, it's not in the picture. I'll show you an example. There are ribbon wands, Dance Like Miriam ribbon wands. And I change those out seasonally. So this is the Pentecost one. And I change based on the color of the liturgical season as well. The creation station with the wiki sticks, I've got different templates where, like Easter, I had an egg and a butterfly, just a standard cross or an ichthys for other points of the year. And so some of it changes and some of it stays the same. And what they do afterwards is they return it all to the return box. And then you can sanitize it and clean it and check it all before putting it all back. Um, and so it's really easy in that sense of it doesn't need to be changed every week. You just got to like do some reorganizing or make sure things go back in their correct places. And actually, what I have discovered with mine is the bags go untouched and they pick maybe one or two things and then switch out throughout the service. And they'll just like come back and decide to do something else or find something else. Um, and they really like that the Bibles are the same Bibles. Some of them are the same Bibles that I give out and send home, and some of them are different. And so some of them like to pick the same Bible they're used to reading at home, and some of them like to pick a different one as well. Um, and a lot of just like with the bulletins I shared earlier, it's not geared towards children, it's intergenerational. And my congregation initially was like, this is for the children. And then they've slowly been like, wow, if I could have had this when I was a kid, or wow, I use the worry stones. I like the way those worry stones feel. And it's like, you also can use these and enhance your worship experience with them too. And so it's slowly like grown, and more people are trying it out, or at least looking at it and curious about it as well. And I just started this. I think Easter was the first Sunday that I did it, and kind of put together with stuff I had around. And it has been a huge hit since then too. So
Thank you so much. Well, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here so we can kind of talk a little bit more. I have a few questions and then we'll make sure we open up because I know I've watched the chat populate. I think Jenna has a lot to share with us. But um, first of all, this looks like it could be a lot of work. And for busy educators, busy pastors, what are your tips for keeping? I mean, you've thrown a few things in along the way, but what are your main tips, top three, for making this sustainable and easy to keep up with? Anyone want to start? Go ahead, Heather.
My, oh,
Um, I love having some things that stay constant. That is a huge time saver for me. And then the other thing that if you are in a congregation that has people who are willing to help, that was key for me. I started making 20 worship bags. We now make 48. It is no longer sustainable for me to do them all every week. It takes about an hour for a volunteer to come in. It's an hour of their time well spent that they can feel really good about, and they see the fruits of that on Sunday morning. And so for me, one of the biggest payoffs was making a box. You can see it right here that has all of the supplies for the worship bags in it. And it has an instruction list how to reset the worship bags. And so I have a group of people that I text. They sign up monthly, and they are the ones who sanitize everything and get everything back. So that would be my advice. Don't be afraid to ask and involve people in helping you do that.
Thank you. Erica, did you start to talk? Do you?
yeah. I think having things that are not dated, that is really helpful. Especially if you're starting off having something that stays the same, order of worship, bulletin that's the same every week, whatever it might be. That's really helpful for us.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Mhm.
And undated is what I was going to say. And I'll add to that what I found too is once I stopped dating things, was wasting a lot less paper also because you can just keep printing the same each week and like top up with five or six, and you don't have to throw away if they weren't used or you have a low attendance Sunday or anything.
Fantastic. My next question is about the resources. Um, how do you judge the quality of a resource? There's a lot of things out there, free children's bulletins here and things you can really quickly print and, stick in there. But what are we looking for as far as a quality for our resources?
I can start with that if you'd like to. Um, I looked, does it theologically align with my congregation? Um, and like specific to each congregation, because even within the PCUSA, within your denominations, each one is different. And that's really important to me. And what I always start with curriculum, any sort of resource. What's their theology? Um, Secondary to that, especially when it has images, are there diverse images? Um, are all the Bible characters white or white presenting? Then I'm going to look for something else, and making sure that there's diversity in the images of both Bible characters and anything beyond that, um, as well. And then I think, like, thinking about things that are dated or not, also, excuse me. Um, and it's sort of adaptability in that sense. Like if I get it, am I just getting a PDF that I have to deal with whatever's in there no matter what and printing off? Or is it something that I can tweak if I need to?
Thank you, Faith. Go ahead.
I
Heather?
th- I think a lot of what I look for is, do I want inspiration or content? Because sometimes I know the content that I want, I just am not sure how I want to deliver it. And I can look at something and get inspiration and be able to recreate it in my Canva document. So that's a key differentiating factor for me and where I'm going to look. And then the second thing I would say is if I want content or I want something a little bit more substantial, are my goals and their goals the same? My goals are to engage them in worship and to help that be a learning and interactive moment. Some people's goals are just busy kids or memorization. And you can pretty easily tell the difference when you're looking. But if I really need content and not just inspiration, I try to find something that is also trying to engage children.
Thank you. Thank you. And you mentioned, all of you talked a little bit about different ages, the different Bibles, this is intergenerational. what and the learning styles, I loved that's a key thing that all of you talked about. Um, where if you were going to start somewhere, you know, somewhere small, would you start with the bags, the bulletins? Some of you integrate the two. Like where would you start just to get your foot in the door if you've never done this before? Anyone?
Yeah, I can go. I personally would start with the bulletins and a bowl of something, uh, sensory toys, some. We started actually with the pipe cleaners as well, Erica. We used pipe cleaners a lot when I first started here. Um, and so a bowl of pipe cleaners, a bowl of sensory toys, and then a printout, something they can grab, either the order of worship or a children's bulletin, and a sign. Maybe your sign is like similar to my parent letter for people to read, but that way you're not having to get that into everyone's hands. It's just there how to use. Um, and then I would slowly add in a clipboard if that helps you, or a bag if that helps. So
Great. Thank you. All right. Well, I want to make sure we have enough time to get to our chat and our questions. So Jenna has been handling those for us. Jenna, do you want to guide us through those questions that have come in? And then if anyone has a follow-up question, please feel free to raise your hand or unmute, and we can continue the conversation in that way.
Yeah, I think some of the questions got answered in the chat, but one that we need to share, someone asked if the flip books are available on the Center for Excellence's website, and they're not. Erica created those, and I know that there's a variety of versions out there of those. One of the things we as a center are always looking for are what are the resources that we can create that are going to be the most helpful for congregation leaders. And so we're making notes as we have these on what would be helpful for templates that we can create and sell. So I've made some notes there.
And Eric
Um,
has shared that template with us. And so when we post, Erica, that's correct. We can post it. When we post this video within the next couple of weeks, we will also share the resources that some of our panelists have given us permission to share with you. So that's exciting. Thank you all for doing that.
there's also a question Catherine has to Erica. I think where did you get the wooden tangram puzzles?
I got them on Amazon. I super last minute decided to do right before Easter, and I was planning on, somebody mentioned they like laminate, cut out all the pieces. I was planning on doing that, and my husband said, "You're going to drive yourself crazy, Holy Week, cutting out a million little shapes and trying to laminate them." And so he actually bought them on Amazon for me. Um, so if you have the time, I definitely think that the illustrated ministry comes with the tanagrams that you can cut out. But yeah, don't do it during Holy Week.
Very good tip. Thank you.
And then one more question just came in. I know lots of us use Canva, but for those who find it frustrating, are there any recommendations for easy to edit templates other than Canva? What you might use?
Maybe.
I don't know of any editable resources, and Kirsten, I'm sure you're going to get to the other resources for children's bulletins, but a pre-made one that is like I can get ideas from, you could print them off just as they go, is Visual Faith Ministry, and I'm going to get the link and I'll put it in the chat. But they have free children's bulletins that are gorgeous. And have places for children to write their own prayers and count the number of things in worship. So I'll link that, but they're not editable. I think if you are struggling with Canva, you could get a simple template that you don't have to change much in. But I don't know of another place that you could get something to edit. Maybe you do, Faith.
I don't know about editable templates, but I was going to say that one of the resources we have through the center is Edutech, and we have some Canva tutorials and helps on Edutech as well. And if you don't see something there or you want help with something specific, let us know, because we know that there's a lot more that Edutech can do with Canva specifically also.
And find someone who loves Canva. I'm obsessed with Canva. I use it everywhere. I'm an evangelist for it. I would happily sit down with anyone for an hour and talk to them about how to use Canva. So find someone who loves it, and maybe that would help.
Jenna, anything else that came through the chat?
Think those were the main questions. The other ones were answered. Are there other questions that people have?
Feel free to unmute and go ahead and speak. As Jenna mentioned, if there is something you are looking for, please email us. Email cece@upsem.edu and tell us, because that is one of our purposes, is to equip and resource educators and pastors and churches. So do not hesitate to ever reach out with an idea, something that you can't find anywhere else. If we know it exists, we will share that, and if it doesn't, we will certainly consider trying how we can help you in that area. Do we have any questions? Go ahead, Priscilla.
I may have missed this because I had to leave the room and answer the door. But when you're creating week by week, is there any challenge to getting the current information from pastors, the preaching pastor, in time that you're not up against the clock? And are pastors generally supportive of this? That's always been my challenge is that somebody's, I created all the things you talked about over 40 years of children's ministry. I created all those things, but I never could get a pastor to be really on board with helping to support and promote that these tools are essential not just for children but for the whole congregation. So, what are some keys to getting, because I know some of you are pastors and you're like, hey, no big deal. But when you're working with somebody who is not on board, what are some strategies you might recommend?
Yeah, I'll answer your first question first about the timeliness. Sometimes I have the correct scripture in there, and sometimes I don't. And you know what? They're none the wiser. It's okay. I have a pastor who does series, and sometimes she has usually the entire year out with the sermon title and scripture. And sometimes we're 2 weeks out, and she says, "You know what? We're not going to read that scripture anymore," and switches it Tuesday before Sunday. So those things happen, and I don't fret over it as much as I used to. There were times that I would reprint on Thursday or Friday because I was like, no, 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 it has to be right. I don't do that anymore. If it's wrong on Wednesday, that's okay. It's done because I have volunteers coming in Wednesday or whatever to do the bags. So that's my cutoff. It'll generally relate. If I have absolutely zilch, I do lectionary. I put the lectionary text in there. It's a good Bible passage. They should look it up anyways. And then as far as your second question, I am super fortunate to have an incredibly supportive pastor and an incredibly supportive congregation. Um, I think worship bags are never going to solve a culture problem. Children's ministry in general has to be a long game if you're trying to shift culture. And so I would say start integrating things, small things as you go. If you can have a time in a children's sermon where you can normalize movement, normalize needing something. If you're the one who does the children's sermon, you can you can sort of educate the congregation that way. Outside of that, I do a lot of worship education with my kids, but I also draw adults into those worship readiness things, the opening up the Bible courses that I do. And that helps the culture change a little bit. The more interactions they have with the children, the more easily they're able to understand, mm, they are super needed in worship. Or, oh, of course they would need a worry stone in worship. Of course they would need a clipboard. Um, and you know what? A clipboard hitting the ground makes just about as much noise as a hymnal hitting the ground when an adult drops a hymnal. So that's that's my piece.
And it doesn't have to happen all at once. If you can talk them into trying it once for some special Sunday, a Funky Friday. I love the funky part of that Friday, Erica. Funky Friday, let's try something.
Funky fifth
Funky
Sunday of the
fifth,
month.
Yeah.
funky fifth. If you can try it, and then if someone says, "Hey, I liked that," then that
Hmm.
little spark is there. So that would be
Yeah.
my tip to try to sneak it in, and then maybe try to sneak it in again, and then eventually you'll get some buy-in.
Okay.
Hopefully, yeah. Thank you, Priscilla. Great question. Anything else before we wrap up? We've reached the end of our hour. Any other thoughts?
Can I throw in real quick to answer
Please.
Priscilla in
Please
two
say.
parts? Also, you could, if you don't have the scripture, you could tie it to whatever you're doing in Sunday school because you're planning Sunday school and you know Sunday school. And it never hurts to get the same thing twice. And sort of similar to what Kirsten said, and you need a little bit of like job security for this, but do it anyways. And like, I know that it's a lot on our part, like to constantly be pushing and doing it anyways. But there have been times where I've done it anyways, and after a few times, they've seen the value in it. And so sometimes you do have to ask for forgiveness, not permission, and just do it anyways.
The downside is I'm retired, and so all I can do is nudge from the sidelines.
Come
And
on back to Westminster, Priscilla.
oh, don't tempt me.
That's wonderful. Oh, well, this has been delightful. Thank you all for being here. A recording, as I said, the recording will go up hopefully in the next week, and we will be including some of these great resources. And if you have questions, feel free to email us and we can connect you. Please mark your calendars for next month's collaborative conversation on Thursday, August 27th at noon Eastern with Owen Pike, who is the Associate Pastor for Ministry to the Online Campus at Fifth Avenue Presbyterian Church in New York City. She's going to be with us leading our conversation on the topic of online worship practices. So that will sure to be interesting and insightful as well. And we hope to see you all there. Thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and we will see you next time. And thank you to our panelists. We're so grateful for your time and expertise. Take care, everyone.